About 3 years ago, I had a sprout of an idea to make a YouTube channel to review video games. Mainly I wanted to review so-called hidden gems, entertaining games I had stumbled upon by chance that very few others had heard of, not to mention played. But seeing as the market was, and is, overcrowded, and I was too timid to push through and crank out a video, that idea fizzled out. But one thing that has stuck with me to this day is that yearning to discuss some of these hidden gems. And that brings me to Ghost Trick, Phantom Detective. Is it review time? No, I shy away from reviewing games. Instead, like in my other videos, I want to focus on a main game design aspect. Usually I'd pick a few games that illustrate the topic well, but in this case I'll use the singularly unique Ghost Trick. I'm Lens of Truth, and I'm going to examine integrating story into gameplay using this DS gem. Ghost Trick Phantom Detective can be broken into two modes. The first is a text-heavy, story-driven mode. Ghost Trick's not a visual novel, but it's a fair comparison. Every chapter features a large amount of dialogue and a wide variety of quirky characters. The main difference comes in the game mode, more on that later. The story is a series of mysteries somehow connected to the death of Sissel, the main character and master of sibilance. He wakes up with no recollection of who he is or how he died. He also has strange ghost powers, more on that in a bit. But instead of leisurely investigating his own demise, he's instantly thrown into the tangled enigma of characters like Lynn and Inspector Cabanela. Now, any mystery story, be it in a book, movie or TV show, or video game, needs to be compelling. The end of a chapter should leave the reader unable to put the book down. Revelations before a cut to commercial should glue the viewer to their seat. Same with video games, and Ghost Trick's story succeeds. The lingering, unanswered questions at the end of chapters leave you hungry for more. But there is a difference in medium. Video games can have great stories, but for many, the mundane slog from cutscene to cutscene is like having to finish your vegetables before getting dessert. That's not okay. If you choose video games as your medium, you'd better ensure every aspect of said medium unites to present your message. And here's where Ghost Trick stands out. The story isn't just at the bookends of each chapter, it's integrated into the other mode. So besides story, Ghost Trick has a game mode, which could be separated into two parts again if you really want, but those two parts are very similar. The gameplay is pretty simple, even if it takes me a long time to explain it. Sissel may be a ghost, but he can't just float around freely. Instead, he has to inhabit an object with a core. He can stretch out his, ectoplasm to reach nearby objects, and that's the only way he can move. There are some objects that can be manipulated to do a simple function. This is Sissel's Ghost Trick, to move objects. Spooky! And if he can attach his ectoplasm to a dead body, he can travel back in time to 4 minutes before death, 4 MBD, and try to prevent that death using his tricks. Whenever you start a chapter, you have some sort of lead. You want to talk to this person, or look for clues somewhere, or see who's at the other end of the line. Your first objective is to find the right place, which usually means getting to the phone. This is easier said than done. For example, the whole third chapter is about finding a path to a phone. Once you reach the phone and figure out the next destination, you use your powers to travel there over the phone line. Upon arrival, you're typically presented with a dead body. This happens a lot. Your objective is now to move near enough to connect to that body in order to go 4 MBD and save that person. This would be the second part of game mode because there's a time limit and time-based events. A little different. First thing you'll see after time traveling is the sequence of events leading to the death, so you'll know what you're up against. The death usually takes place in the area you're just exploring in the present, so you have some idea of which objects you can interact with and what their trick is. But now the clock's ticking. You only have those 4 minutes to prevent that death, or you have to start over, though there are checkpoints. And many events are time-based, like this lady looking for a dictionary, or these guards patrolling near enough so you can hitch a ride on their billy clubs. So the object here is to move around the space, interact with objects and learn what they do, and create a path to your objective. Now let's take a look at this story integration. Like I mentioned, the story doesn't just bookend the chapters, although they usually begin and end with some sort of recap. The story is presented in numerous ways. One way is to simply talk to another character. The problem is that you're a ghost, so the only people you can talk to are the dead, or those who have died and been saved multiple times. Some of these conversations are their own event, playing out Ace Attorney style, and some happen right in the middle of a trick, or while preventing a death. While you get a lot of info this way, it's not enough. The other thing you can do is eavesdrop on conversations. You're a ghost, so no one's gonna notice, and you learn many pieces of the puzzle this way. Crucial tidbits are hinted at, mentioned in passing, or liberally dropped. And this dialogue during gameplay is organic. It almost always has to do with what's going on in the scene, or what you're trying to accomplish. It's not like modern RPGs where your party members just spout lore or character development at random.
Why don't we just move around and make things easier on ourselves? It's making the hairs on my neck stand up.
You gotta stop worrying, Sass.
Let's see how accurate I was in explaining integration by looking at Chapter 7. It begins with Sissel returning to the chicken kitchen. He recounts how he agreed to touch base here with Lynn, the red-headed detective. No, not that one. She had asked Sissel to go check on an inmate's schedule. However, when he returns, the place has changed a bit. There's a van through the window. Sissel's here to meet Lynn, so after briefly exploring, you find her crushed beneath a giant chicken. Since she's dead, and this isn't the first time, she and Sissel can chat. Here's a definite story/visual novel-esque section, where you choose which questions to ask, though you'll ask all of them eventually. You get more revelations about the characters, and then Sissel turns back time to save Lynn. Now, in life-saving mode, you're fairly limited in where you can go. A sign says to ring the bell 3 times for water, so you do. This brings a waitress over with a pitcher, which you can inhabit. The girls exchange brief dialogue, giving them a little character, and then you get carried over to this cart. The waitress then moves the cart upstairs, which allows you to move this suitcase between these 2 shady characters. They start speaking, mentioning some very specific incidents which Sissel just learned about in the prison. You want to hear more, but the lady feels like someone's listening in, so they move to another table. Stranded, you have to play around with a tap and some glasses, which prompts the waitress and bartender to interact, hinting at the waitress's secret. To get the shady man to bring the suitcase over to the table so you can continue listening in. You don't hear much though before the lady finds and incinerates a bug planted on the chicken. At which point, the van crashes through the window. With seconds to spare, you move over to the swinging giant chicken, and just before it crushes Lynn, you see a path to the dead driver. Make your way over to him and go to his 4MBD. Here we learn from the driver, who's a detective, that the chicken kitchen is under surveillance and that Lynn's not so coincidental presence there is dangerous. The detective gets a call from the waitress to tell him she's going to bug the chicken she's serving the 2 shady characters, revealing that she's undercover. Then he radios Inspector Cabanela to inform him Lynn's in the restaurant. Cabanela freaks and orders him to go extract her, showing us how the inspector feels about Lynn. so the detective jumps in his van and races toward the restaurant. He's got his headphones on to listen to the bug the waitress planted, and it's then that we learn that when the lady burns the bug, it causes a sharp noise in the detective's headphones, leaving him unconscious, which is what sends his van through the window. And if you're feeling murderous, you can also drop his seat back and cause the accident yourself. Okay, so now you know what causes these crazy events to occur, but how to stop it? Well, you rewind back to the park and figure out how to get to the phone. This gives you the option to go across the line. You're limited when turning back time to travel only to the number that calls. This brings you to the chicken kitchen's kitchen, where you spy the waitress putting the bug on the chicken. Now you have to figure out how to switch the chicken without her noticing, so she thinks the bug's still on the chicken when she brings it to the two shady characters, but it's not. So the lady doesn't incinerate it, and the detective doesn't get knocked unconscious, so he doesn't crash the van through the window. Fate averted. With the lives now saved, Lynn agrees to fill Sissel in on the case she's working on. You quickly make your way over to her, ringing the bell 3 times to call the waitress to ride the pitcher like before, and get a nice resolution to the events of the chapter. You also notice something strange about the detective you saved. Then you talk to Lynn Ace Attorney style and get a lot of backstory. The detective then lets the cat out of the bag concerning the inmate's execution, and Lynn asks you to save him as she rushes off to the Prime Minister's office. Sissel then ends the chapter by reminding you who the inmate is and announcing his resolve to save him. Whew. As you can see, the chapter about the chicken kitchen's disaster was anything but padding. We learned a ton about the key characters identified so far, as well as introduced some minor characters and introduced the mystery of the chicken kitchen stakeout, all while solving a fun, multi-step puzzle that escalated the gameplay from previous puzzles and prepared you for upcoming ones. Whew. And this isn't even halfway yet. Thanks for watching. While choosing background music for my channel trailer, I started going through Ghost Trick's OST and just couldn't resist. And I didn't even go through how the soundtrack itself always fits the mood perfectly and drives the game forward, or mention the incredibly witty dialogue, or talk about the beautiful animations. Seriously, this is my favorite original game on the DS, and if you get a chance to play it, I strongly recommend it, especially if you like Ace Attorney. Well, that's all for me. If you liked the video, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. Have you played this game? What's your favorite part? I laughed so hard when I saw the curry-loving jailbird who fell asleep while digging out of prison above the electric chair chamber. Are there other games that really integrate the story into gameplay? I wanted to put Ghost Trick into the spotlight, so I didn't want to take time away to talk about any others. Finally, subscribe if you'd like more videos like these. I also have a Facebook page and Twitter account, so I can talk about things that don't need a whole video, and maybe throw in some behind the scenes action to boot. So, until next time.